malta, sejam muito bem-vindos aqui a mais uma React do Weekend. Tal como ontem, hoje vamos estar a reagir, peço desculpa, vamos estar a reagir a um vídeo de jogos de terror. No vídeo de ontem foi a origem do mold, a entender a biologia desse organismo terrível que originou, digamos assim, a história de Resident Evil Village. Não se preocupem, eu irei trazer a Resident Evil Village também, mas no vídeo de hoje nós estaremos a ver a terrível origem da cidade de Silent Hill, a história antes de Silent Hill 2. Eu quero dizer aqui uma coisa, que eu quero muito experimentar Silent Hill, mas não sei se tem o 1, então eu tenho que ver melhor. E se tu que estás a ver este vídeo sabes ou se já jogaste Silent Hill, diz-me se vale a pena, sem dar spoilers, mas diz-me se vale a pena. Então já sabem, malta, antes de avançarmos, deixem já o vosso like, subscrevam-se e ativem o sininho das notificações para não pararem de receber notificação de quando irá sair o próximo vídeo, pois em 2026 está a sair praticamente vídeos todos os dias, exceto à sexta. Então é isso tudo, malta. Vamos logo avançar para a história antes de Silent Hill 2.
Have you ever been walking in the woods looking for your wife you believe to be dead, or been feeling some extreme trauma about your dark past actions that you've only just realized? Well, in your travels you might have worked your way into the rural town within the US state of Maine named as Silent Hill, and found yourself amongst terrifying abandoned buildings, monsters roaming the streets, and the whole land covered in extremely thick fog. During that time you'll be thinking to yourself, where on earth am I? Or am I in some weird alternate dimension? And to some extent you'd be going down the right path with that question. Silent Hill might seem like a beautiful, peaceful New England tourist town where you can go to simply relax and forget all of your worries, but in reality it is something much darker and much more mysterious, where people come to sort out their deep problems and fight their own demons, and with it comes a lot of danger. But Silent Hill never used to be like this. It used to be something great, but due to a dark past it has turned into the town it is today. So how did it get to be?
The door that wakes in darkness opening into nightmare. Foda-se. Eu admito, se eu tivesse a andar sozinho à noite e numa parede eu visse esta frase, eu dizia não e voltava para trás.
Be like this? What is the town's history? Why are there monsters roaming the streets? And is there only one Silent Hill? Well, in today's episode we will be exploring the whole dark past all the way up until the events of Silent Hill 2. So grab your plank of wood with a nail in it, wash your face in the dingy bathroom, and sit back and relax the history of this terrifying place. This is the origin of the rural town known as Silent Hill.
Agora que me estou a lembrar, eu acho que tenho aqui um vídeo no canal da história completa de Silent Hill. Se não estou em erro, eu tenho. Que depois, se quiserem ver, esperem até ao final.
Silent Hill's origins go all the way back 4 decades before the people of Europe came over to colonize the whole of the North American land. During this time, the land around the Toluca Lake area was known to the Native Americans as the place of silent spirits, or the place of the silent spirits. This had a bigger meaning than what we would simply describe spirits as being. Not just people who have lived on this planet and have died, like their loved relatives for example, but they also believed it was the spirits that inhabited the trees, rocks, and and water around them, essentially the spirits of all living things and how the world works in tandem with them. With this mindset, this was a very important place for the Native Americans. They considered the land to have real spiritual significance, and with it the whole land was filled with an air of mysterious power that needed to be respected, but they didn't fully understand it. Regardless of them not understanding what caused this, with it mainly being down to the spirits of the land, this site became a holy site where many rituals and ceremonies took place that helped with their religious or spiritual beliefs. One tribe that was known for living around here worshipped a deity here named the Quequaxaw, and because of that named the land around them Quequaxaw Candesta, which translated to nest of the raven from their native language. This history and links to the Native American tribe are significant because all of these things were documented down, like the deity and the spirits in the area, by tribal historians who would use raven feathers to record ongoing events. Their belief in this raven deity meant that they believed writing with feathers allowed them to control the past and future of their people. By the 17th century, the British had made it to these lands and had started setting up their first colonies, with the first permanent one being located out within Jamestown. And now that the ball was rolling in their years of colonizing, it was only a matter of time before the colonizers made it further inland and witnessed this sacred land known as the Place of Silent Spirits. Reaching this area, the newcomers outnumbered the natives with help from the government as well, and because of that were able to throw out the Native Americans living in this land and claimed it for themselves. The native population would be furious as this land was always theirs, and like mentioned, it was an extremely spiritual one as well. But knowing that the colonizers would never fully understand the land, the Native Americans moved out, found new land, and cursed the Place of Silent Spirits as the colonizers settled inside of it. Not everyone who moved into this area that was soon to be named as Silent Hill were ignorant of the land and the Native American customs, however. Some who had come from Europe seemed intrigued by the spiritual nature of it, most likely by actually speaking with the natives, and because of it, became obsessed with it. Jennifer Carroll would be one of these individuals as she became intrigued by the power of this area, but knew that if she would create her own religion, it would conflict with the religious authorities, so instead formed.
Isto faz-me lembrar muito ao dormir de Resident Evil Village, do vídeo de ontem, que reagi, não sei o porquê, mas
an organization that would be simply known as the Order, which consisted of other individuals who believed in the power of this land as well. Essentially, this became an occult, and unfortunately that was to become obvious to the authorities and someone was to be punished for it. Carol would be the prime target for this punishment as she would be burnt at the stake in the year 1692, with the authorities basically claiming she was getting involved in witchcraft. This event only enhanced the Order, however, as they turned Jennifer Carroll into a saint, erecting a monument in her name out within Rosewater Park later in Silent Hill's timeline, engraving it with the message, "What happened here shall never be forgotten." For the colonizers in this location, things would go quickly bad at the start of the 1700s as their whole society would be hit with a massive epidemic that would sweep through the area surrounding the Toluca Lake. As the epidemic passed through the area, the people located within the town that was to be called Silent Hill would be almost completely wiped out. Due to this massive loss of life, the remaining survivors had no choice and abandoned their settlements completely, leaving it to be uninhabited for the next 100 or so years. Over a century had gone past since the epidemic hit and caused the settlement to be completely abandoned. But eventually, people came back into the town and set it up as a penal colony closer to the Toluca Lake. And with that penal colony being set up, the resettling process began again, with most of the people living here being part of the Manifest Destiny movement, which is a phrase that was used for the new colonizers who believed they were destined to expand westward across North America, allowing for an American exceptionalism ideology as well as a romanticized nationalist view. This was when the settlement was finally named Silent Hill by the non-natives, something that stuck for many years to come. With Silent Hill building up more and more during the 19th century, a prison was established here on September 11, 1820, as well as a hospital that would be called the Brookhaven Hospital. The reason why the hospital was set up quite quickly here was because yet another epidemic threatened the town, almost as if they had been cursed to be under constant threat threat from disease and death. Funny that. Brookhaven, however, was used to combat this threat and was highly effective at curing the sick and was a saving light in those incredibly dark times within Silent Hill. Just before that, in 1816, the Giuseppe Coal and Iron Company would also move into this area for some mining business, as they were going to set up the Devil's Pit mine that would be located in the southeastern part of Silent Hill. A couple of decades after Maine became an official state, which is where Silent Hill was based, the prison located there was officially closed down. Why it was closed in 1840 is unknown, and whether it's the same prison that still exists there currently is also unknown. 10 years after that, a coalfield was discovered beneath Silent Hill, which once again brought many people in to try and extract it all. This opened the Wiltsey coal mine to the area, which helped the town embrace a new golden age, where the money gathered from this mining operation was poured into the area's facilities, helping everyone see an increase in their economy and the revitalization of the town. 10 years after that, the Giuseppe Coal and Iron Company also started extracting ore from their Devil's Pit that they set up almost 50 years prior. However, that following year, the American Civil War would officially break out, which would massively impact the development of Silent Hill. It would also massively upset a lot of people there, as during the war, one of the most famous citizens of Silent Hill, known as Patrick Chester, would go on to die within the war whilst fighting alongside his son Edward Chester. Due to this, a stone statue was built and placed within Rosewater Park as a memorial for him. Whilst this was going on, a new prison was set up, maybe on the same grounds as the old one, but that isn't clear. This new prison, named Toluca Prison, was set up to be a camp for POWs who they'd captured during the war and most likely put to work or executed in front of people. But then after that, became a formal correctional facility for those affected by PTSD or anything the war brought to them. There were padded cells, small holding cells, electric chairs, areas for prayer, and more to supposedly help them get through whatever they're facing. Did it actually help them? Probably not. In 1867, Silent Hill had a new sheriff.
Ok. Isto está a ser demasiada informação, mas eu estou a gostar. Então peço desculpa, malta, se neste tipo de vídeos de história, de jogos e qualquer outro tipo de vídeos baseado em história eu fique mais calado, mas é simplesmente fico demasiado focado e interessado em que eu acabo por me esquecer que eu até estou a gravar. Então, malta, vamos continuar.
Sheriff named Seth Creviston, but one individual would venture into the area, one with an extremely dark past, who was going to feel the full force of the people in Silent Hill. Jebediah Hellrider Foster was once a violent outlaw in the Dakota Territory within this year, but would have a change in his life as he and his wife Esther Monroe would go on to expect a child. With that, Esther would want to go to Silent Hill to start their new lives and raise a family there. Going to the area, the two would go on to set themselves up within a new family home, whilst also upsetting some people on the way, such as Howard Blackwood, who Jebediah was racist to on their route. On entering Silent Hill, Jeb would go on to start having regular nightmares, as well as the townsfolk who seemed to ignore him and act distant from him. During his time in this house, Jeb would find a bottle of whiskey, which triggered a flashback of a time a man named Grimes gave him money for murdering a group of people for no real reason. The whiskey was then drunk after as a celebration of a job well done. During this, however, Esther would scream from the house as a Cherokee woman named Enola had broken into their house, and when Jeb got there, she was on the floor with bleeding hands and a knife nearby. Speaking with Esther about her relationship with Jeb and her baby, Enola would leave immediately as soon as Jeb entered the house, similar in style to how everyone else was ignoring Jeb as well. Before leaving, however, Enola was told to take her knife, but she just replies that it wasn't hers. She was just returning it, and finally saying Jeb's nickname of Hellrider. As time progresses on, with Jeb desperately trying to seek out the sheriff of Silent Hill to report Enola to him, Enola would get closer to Esther, watching over her every movement and looking after her every time she may have fallen or felt weak. As the nightmares got worse for both Jeb and Esther, they would both be watched by a tall skeletal figure who sometimes was pregnant themselves. As time progressed on and Esther finally went into labor, Enola and her daughter, the terrifying skeletal creature that was named Awinata, would arrive on the scene whilst Jeb was out again, as they would assist Esther with the delivery. During this, Esther would realize that the nightmares she was having were of Awinata pregnant with Enola, telling her to push and hurry before they come. Coming back into the room after this realization, Enola would be echoing those same words to Esther and tells her to push, but also goes on to instruct Awinata to merge with Esther, causing both of their babies to become one. As Jeb finally gets back to the house after dealing with the townspeople and the sheriff who tried to block him in his path, he would encounter one final flashback which would reveal his darkest sin and the thing that is haunting him still to this date. When he was sent out on his mission to kill the Cherokee tribe members during his outlaw years, he would encounter both Enola and Awinata, who was currently in the process of giving birth. As he encountered the two, Jeb would take out his knife and without hesitation killed the baby, stating that no more of these tribe members should be born. After that flashback, Jeb would see that Esther was now dead, but the baby had been born. With that, he turned to Enola and simply stated that she should take it and just leave, and with that went up to his wife's body and cradled it, with it being claimed that a life had been traded for a life as well. As Enola leaves the house, which was set ablaze as well as the rest of the town as well, she would go up to Howard Blackwood, Silent Hill's postmaster, and introduce him to her new baby daughter, Awinata. Questioning the fire going on behind them and throughout all of the town, Enola replies that the spirits of Silent Hill are no longer silent, and that the fires burn for them, and that they have only just begun. With an event like that happening, it had shaken up Silent Hill even more than what it had during the Civil War, but it didn't stop there, as in 1890, 23 years after the tragedy of Esther and Jeb, more people started to mysteriously vanish from Silent Hill, with not many knowing where they had gone or what had taken them. But this was just another episode within the town's dark history. The 20th century, which was right around the corner, would trigger the largest spike of strange activity that the town had ever seen. At the turn of the century, a new power started to rise within the town of Silent Hill. This group would be simply named as the Order, a doomsday cult that had held a wide variety of beliefs, which did include some of the Native American beliefs as well. This group during the 20th century harnessed the powers that be in the area, the corruption if you will, and used it to reach their influential peak. Whilst this was all going on, however, Toluca Prison would go on to officially close, with not many really knowing the official reason why. There could have been a multitude of reasons behind its closure, such as a lack of actual patients that needed help, or more likely due to the heavy water damage the place took due to mass flooding because of it being located next to Toluca Lake. With Toluca Prison now closed, the Silent Hill Historical Society was built on its former site to display some of the important things that have happened in the area, as well as some of the horrors they had gone through. On top of that, the Wilsey coal mine fully dried up as well, meaning all of the funding coming from that had to stop. And with everything that made Silent Hill prosper now pretty much shut down, the people still living there needed to find a new source of income to allow them to continue on in this new era. Here
Por acaso, nesta parte da história, será que vai acontecer o incêndio na mina? Por isso é que Silent Hill é todo coberto por nevoeiro do incêndio. Será?
it was decided that Silent Hill was to become a tourist town, and all of its shops and surroundings would cater to travelling sightseers who wanted to explore this part of the country and learn its history. As the town started setting itself up for this new journey, miners would go on to discover mysterious symbols carved into the walls of a limestone grotto in the Superstition Caverns. This all happened within the year 1911, and because of this rumour that was spreading around, a lot of people started to speculate it was linked to witchcraft and the occult. This wasn't the last of the mining problems, however, as just after this discovery, a series of unfortunate incidents happened which included reports of mysterious creatures appearing and attacking the miners, which led to the Giuseppe Coal and Iron Company to suspend all mining operations along this part of their mine. A few years later, in 1918, the biggest fear of any tourist attraction happened in Silent Hill on the Toluca Lake. Here, a ship that was known as the Little Baroness went missing with no one knowing where it had gone. This made the headlines all over and started what would be Silent Hill's tourist attractions' downfall, as after this occurrence, many other strange happenings would happen on the lake, giving this whole area an extremely negative reputation and advising sightseers to not venture here. Despite that negativity around the 1960s, Silent Hill needed to up their efforts to try and get people interested in visiting the area once again and put together a team of people to advertise what they had to the wider population. However, during this time, the staff for the company who were part of the advertising campaign to make it a family-friendly destination were all found dead around the same time, more or less. At first, this was deemed as an accident. However, as the deaths seemed to be mere days apart, it started raising suspicions, and rumors started going around that it was down to the town's religious cult, although that was never proven. Despite that shocking event for Silent Hill, everything carried on as normal. That was until around 6 years later, when a girl named Alessa Giuseppe would be born to Dalia Giuseppe. Dalia was a spiritualistic medium, a Miko for the cult of the Order, currently within Silent Hill's underworld. Alessa did not have any visible father in her life, with many believing her birth was more of an event where she was created through magical conjuration by a fanatical sect within the Order led by Dalia. With that creation process, it was believed that Alessa had an embryonic god seed within her. During her upbringing, Alessa dreamed of a world that was based on the Order's vision of paradise, a utopian world where there was no human evil, hatred, greed, war, disease, starvation, or even old age. The only way to achieve this, however, was by cleansing the world in fire, and only then could paradise be a thing. With this, the Order would use Alessa and her spiritual godlike powers to do the Order's wishes. This would lead to Alessa affecting many things and people in the area, even turning some people into horrific monstrosities. On top of that, with their strong connection to the paranormal, Silent Hill would be hit with yet another curse, which would lead all of those who held darkness close to their hearts into the town, something that had been seen before with Jeb, but was now at a much higher level. 2 years after Alessa's birth, however, another girl named Claudia Wolf would be born, allowing for Alessa to have a friend within the Order, and as the two grew up, they found an extremely close bond with one another and shared their same views on faith. By the age of 7, however, Alessa had become aware that her mother was wanting to use her as a way to get the cult's god and continue to use her powers to help the Order on their main ambition. Alessa wanted no part of this any longer and started to retaliate against her mother. Regardless, Dalia's arrogance convinced her she could conduct the ritual herself in her own home and started to create the Order's god, utilizing her daughter as the surrogate mother. As the ritual began, Alessa's body would be fully ignited in fire, with the cult's symbols being drawn around her with candles lit in a circle. With Alessa in incredible amounts of pain, she looked to try and find help to get her out of it, utilizing her ability to astral project to go and find help. Here she would find the trucker, Travis Grady, who she directed to the house where the ritual was taking place. Despite Alessa stating to just let her burn, Travis would grab her and take her to safety, which essentially suspended the creations of the cult's god for the time being. In the eyes of others, Dalia was seen to have gone mad due to what they thought was the death of her child. Eventually, the Order was able to move Alessa's body to a secret ritual site where Dalia would continue to try and create her god. Throughout this, Alessa continued to use astral projection to guide Travis on his journey and stop the cult in their plans, and use a device known as the Florus to trap the evil side of her. Eventually, as Travis was successful and got back into his truck, Alessa would appear once again holding a baby, in which part of her had been reincarnated into. This newborn, Alessa's other half, would eventually go on to be found outside of Silent Hill by a man known as Harry Mason, as well as his wife Jodie, where they would pick her up and raise them, naming the child as Cheryl. Whilst all of that was going on, a drug was starting to circulate throughout all of Silent Hill. This drug would be known as PTV, which was derived from a local plant known as White Claudia. The ones who came up with this drug profited massively from it. One of those benefiting parties would go on to be the Order themselves, as they supposedly used it to make contact with their spiritual realm as well as their god. This drug was embraced by many of the tourists entering the area as it had psychedelic properties, and together with Silent Hill's alcohol Alguma hospital, the PTV drug was produced in mass quantities. However, many forces attempted to shut down this drug with a formal criminal investigation unit looking into it, with even the mayor's office following it up as well. However, powerful forces were set to lose a lot if this were to shut down, and because of this attention on the drug in the area, the mayor was a target, was found to be dead not long after. After the events with Travis Grady, Alessa's body was taken to the aforementioned Alchemalia Hospital and was hidden inside the hospital's basement by her mother once again, as well as the director of the hospital, Dr. Michael Kaufman, one of the founders of the PTV drug. The public within Silent Hill who were part of the cult believed that Alessa had died during this, however, and because of it was labelled as a saint, being the mother of God and daughter of God. Only a few, including her mother and Kaufman, knew the truth of the matter, and because of it, ordered that no member of the hospital staff enter the basement, only allowing the young nurse of Lisa Garland to care for her and to silence her. Lisa would be supplied with as much PTV as she wanted by Kaufman himself. For 7 years, Alessa continued to be tortured by her own mother and the Order with the attempt to try and birth their cult's god. Dahlia tortured her to try and make it so there was no happiness at all within her, meaning that the separate part of her that she split off within the other child of Cheryl would return back to her. Alessa would be aware of this as she would hear outside of her hospital room a group of people discussing that she was going to be visited by a certain person. Despite the endless agony of what her mother was doing to her, which also included the use of hallucinogenic drugs, Alessa reached out to Cheryl, calling her to the town of Silent Hill with the intent of reuniting her soul and then killing herself, making it so the god inside of her would never be born and she could finally be at rest. As Cheryl got close to Silent Hill, Alessa used her skills in astral projection once again and walked in front of the family's jeep, causing Harry to swerve off the side of the road and off a cliff. Whilst Harry lay there unconscious, Cheryl would be lured to Alessa, which triggered a new phenomenon within Silent Hill, as the whole area would be coated in a mysterious fog to try and prevent her mother's plans from working. As Harry wakes from his crash, he would be reached out to by Dahlia, who would urge him to seek out Alessa, who held the mark of a demon, and if she were successful in her plans, would plunge the entire town into a hellish alternate dimension known as the Otherworld. Finding Alessa, however, Harry would go on to neutralize her, only to find out that Alessa was doing the complete opposite and was trying to contain the Otherworld herself with a talisman known as the Seal of Metatron. After further venturing through this now haunting town of Silent Hill, Dahlia would capture Alessa again, who was now fully combined with Cheryl, and would finally give birth to the cult's god. The god, either being the incubator or the demonic incubus, would go on to immediately kill Dahlia once and for all, and then went on to face Harry one-on-one. Amazingly, Harry would go on to do it, destroying the Order's worshipped god and enabling him to go back to the real world once again. Alessa would just be left as a faded apparition. Within her last breath, Harry would be presented with a newborn child, which contained the fused soul of herself and Cheryl. This child, however, that would be named as Heather, would have none of Alessa's memories, meaning she could live a happy life without any pain or suffering, the life that Alessa had always wanted. With this massive event taking place, the Order was shut down for the time being, or at least went into hiding, but the whole town of Silent Hill was still massively affected by the mysterious fog that surrounded the area, the Otherworld that was still present there, and more significantly, people who contained deep traumatic events inside their memories were being lured into the town to deal with them and their monsters, who now littered the town in their own forms. Many would experience this lure into the town, and many would be driven mad by their own monsters or experiences. For one individual known as James Sunderland, he would receive a mysterious letter from his deceased wife, Mary Shepherd Sunderland, telling him she always wanted to go to Silent Hill with James and that she is waiting for him there. With that, James, looking for answers, set out to this haunting town and was forced to deal with everything he had done and felt leading up to his own wife's death. Many other events happened after James's venture into this haunting town and its otherworld. However, this episode is to explore how it got to this state where the streets are empty and the whole of it is covered in a thick fog with otherworldly beings roaming the place, and hopefully this video has explained why it is the way it is. Maybe in the future we will get to witness some more stories about this place and how it affected others along the way. But for now, this has been the dark and terrifying origins of the resort town simply known as Silent Hill.
Então isso, malta. Espero. Eu gostei de descobrir a origem da cidade de Silent Hill. Tipo, a história antes de jogar Silent Hill 2. Obviamente, estou ansioso para poder experimentar jogar Silent Hill. Com certeza que eu tenho que arranjar e poder trazer e poder platinar aqui para o canal. Então, malta, espero muito que vocês tenham gostado. Vocês não viram, mas deixei like neste vídeo, por isso deixem o vosso like se vocês gostam deste tipo de conteúdo. Subscrevam-se e ativem o sininho das notificações, que é para não pararem de receber notificação de quando irá estar a sair vídeos, pois em 2026 está praticamente a sair vídeos quase todos os dias. Então com certeza que tu não queres perder isso. Então é isso tudo, malta. Obrigado e até para a semana para mais uma React Weekend.